cooking some pizza and kind of reflecting on just the busy month, right? You know, we're going to start September here in Chicago. Kids go back to school tomorrow, so that's exciting, and kind of like the official end of summer. We had the DNC this week, and for those of you who don't know, you could probably throw a stone and hit the United Center. So we're right here in the neighborhood. So for like maybe 2 weeks now, been putting together. The city has 6-foot partitions. There's a perimeter with check-ins and ID checks and areas for protesters, and it's quite an event. It was good for the city. I think we had a lot of people in the city. DNC looked good. I was following along. I avoided the area. Like, I just didn't go over there as much as possible. It's not something that I wanted to go through. I could barely get to my house, so like, I mean, we're that close. So kind of alternate routes, but I'm happy for the city. Happy for what I heard in the DNC. Some of the speeches we heard: Michelle Obama, Oprah, President Obama. Lots of good speakers, actually. Like a lot of things that I needed to hear, I think, to understand what some possibilities might be, so that was kind of encouraging. And then headed into changing up all my schedule for the fall. So thinking back on the last 30 months as a consultant and looking at like what the 2024 plan was. And so we have our pizza dough here. It's nice and soft. It's been about 2.5 hours on the rise. Just a quick dough. Nothing crazy here. We're always in the kitchen. Looking at, where I'm at, like we've got, and kind of recommending for everyone what works for me is constantly assessing that plan and making sure we're like, don't get to October and haven't worked the 2024 plan. And at the same time, we know we're now on a slide right to going to the holidays, right? And for bakeries and for chefs. Here in Chicago, as soon as kids go back to school, boom, then the events start. We've got a lot of charitable events, a lot of chef events, a lot of just busy business, right? And it's great. We need it. Like most of my clients' bakeries, most everybody's restaurants, Q4 is we make the sale. So hopefully we're able to ride, quarter to quarter pretty well until we finally like get there, right? We get there, it's October, we've got like Halloween and Thanksgiving and Friendsgiving and, Christmas, obviously, festive season, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, all those things all the way to New Year's. And we really don't get a break, right? So as I get on the cusp of that, right on the precipice of that downward slide, just encouraging everybody, whether I work with you, don't work with you, whether I'm just meeting you, to do that assessment right away. Like, hey, where am I at on that 2024 plan? What do I need to double down on, right? What I need to double down on, and really, it's not too late for the rest of the year, right? It's not too late. Yeah, I'm cooking a little bit of pizza here, and since I'm in Chicago, right, we're gonna do like giardiniera pizza, because that's everybody's liking right now. It's really good. It's more like a early snack. We'll probably, like on the weekends, I don't know how you do it, but we kind of graze all weekend long. Like during the week, I'm probably up 4 or 5 a.m. doing office work, go visit clients. I purposely have a really busy, aggressive schedule and try to make myself as available as possible to people, especially when it's warm. And now we're getting, part of that planning is like, how do I adjust my schedule for fall so that as it gets dark earlier, I'm doing R&D. I have 2 kitchens. This is like the upstairs kitchen, and then downstairs is more like a lab kitchen, like an R&D kitchen. How do I end up doing more of that office work through the winter, R&D, remote, virtual training? And so in your businesses too, whether it's like everything's, IRL and walk-ins, but mail order, right? How do we kind of keep those revenue streams maximizing, right? So a lot of good people on here. Hey, everybody. If you don't know, I'm a pastry consultant, Jimmy McMillan, here in Chicago, who for the last 30 months have solely like focused on helping people who who can really maximize on some know-how to save time and money, right? That's basically what it is. But I've been able to, pick up work across the spectrum, and that's the goal. So that's the other thing to think about. Do you have a really clear, identified, customer group, or are you still trying to figure out like what everybody, who your customer is? For me, when I look at globally, I've learned a lot. Like in the bakery space, many of the clients have the same products, kind of, maybe different versions. Chocolate chip cookie, blueberry muffin, right? Chocolate cake, all these staples. And what I'm finding is interesting, and full disclosure, I'm mostly on the artisan side. Like, my background's luxury. I like to work with brands that have better products. So even if it's like consumer packaged goods, what people call CPG, terms like that too, I would encourage you, like, those industry terms they're not pretty for the public. They don't really understand them. So we're talking about grocery cookies, or like in-store bakery, bakery items that are made for mass consumption. Um, those products, it's hard to make them good, right? It's hard to make them good. So I'm trying to help navigate, those retail waters for people, and it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy because they really don't necessarily care, right? What's driving better grocery? What's driving better grocery is y'all, right? Is us wanting more. If it wasn't for that, the grocers would probably like continue to put, things on the shelf that can retail for like 3,000 days, like a pie on the table. Looking at you, Costco, like a $5 pumpkin pie that can last for 3 months. So that's the opposite of what I believe in. It's the opposite of what I do. And most of us in Chicago, there's a lot of savvy diners, right? A lot of good consumers, a lot of good cooks. I think everybody should be in the kitchen a little bit, right? But getting back to it, what I've kind of seen the similarities, y'all, if they're funny, what I see the similarities is that the amount of revenue too is really similar. So not only do bakeries have a similar items, kind of in sometimes in the same neighborhood or like across town, but they also have like the same amount of like revenue share. So whether it's like a big day for a small tiny micro bakery might be 1K, right? 2K, 2.5K, all the way up to like a more established bakery hitting 3.5K, 4K, maybe 5 on a Saturday. But if you look at that, if they're closed any days, if they have shorter hours, some bakeries aren't open that late, the overall revenue share that you're going after is relatively small. That is why in our P&Ls, very few days can tank your whole year, right? Very few losses. A few, maybe you had a mechanical issue that's out of your hands. All those little bumps in the road for 5K here, 3K here, 2K here cause a lot of problems, right? So being vigilant on what those ways that you've been exposed or are exposed on a daily, weekly basis, that's a great focus. So sometimes I think we just focus on the wrong things, right? We're focused on everything that never works. And I'm just saying this because I'm seeing it again over and over and over from the inside. Yes, when I was chef working in hotels or in a chocolate company, or in a where I was over 44 grocery stores, like seeing there, but even more seeing it now, like real time, jumping from one bakery to another bakery, even in other cities. I have a little bit reach outside the state. So if you're outside the state, I'm accessible to everyone here through virtual, or I'll get on a plane and come see you. But it's interesting. So if I have a client in Michigan, or have a client in New York, or have a client in Chicago, and they have the same circumstance, right? So what are we learning? Like, we're all going through the same thing. And some people, business owners would view like others going through the same thing as competition. But I would say like it's a lot less competition than you would think, right? Like it is competitive, but you can win by just being better. You can win by being better in every way, right? The other thing we're seeing is too many items, right? Too many items. So yeah, while we're talking here, shred some cheese. Like, again, nothing crazy going on. It just happened to be in the kitchen. Just want to turn on the camera and talk to everybody, but really what we're talking about is what I've noticed and what I'm recommending bakery owners can do and react to headed into Q4 before it's too late, learning from the past. So a few things, right? We're like, one, we have too many items, like we're talking about, and we know, and this isn't Jimmy talking, but like I do believe this. This is um, what a lot of experts will say, right? In a lot of areas, just that 80-20 rule. Is anyone familiar with that 80-20 rule? So that really kind of says that 80% of the sales come from like 20%, 20% of the products, right? So if you have 100 products, like, they're not all hitting, right? They're not all responsible for making profits for you, but they are responsible for pulling down, operational efficiencies, right? So like complexity is the enemy of execution, right? So I think overall, what I've seen is we're just too complex. Simplify things. I mean, the good news is you can always get more complicated. I think when you see a small business, like I think the advantage of the micro bakeries, what's really exciting to me, is that by definition of micro bakeries, very, very few items, right? We have 10 items. And just do those 10, make them as perfect as possible. That right there kind of feeds into that 80-20 rule. So now I have less items to begin with. I don't have expectation. The problem with the existing bakery really is that there's so much clientele, somewhat perceived, but actual, has anyone ever taken anything off a menu and like the next day, an old regular comes in, not old by age, just a regular comes in and they say like, oh, you can't take it off the menu because we got, I get one every week. I get one every week, or every time I come in, however frequent or infrequent that is. So just rolling out some pizza dough here, but the kind of pre-relax it, and then you put it back on the menu, right? And so sometimes the best person to make those choices is not the business owner, unfortunately. And then we have all these apps, right? Like, I don't know, maybe put in the chat what all the apps people are using. There's so many. You got an app for everything. It's good. It's the best way right now to gather real-time information, whether it's through the POS, whether it's through some other systems. Maybe you just want some help. If you're using like Mies or something to do the billing, if you're using, Margin Edge to help with inventory and like invoicing and that. But I have to say, like, no matter what everyone's using, again, I get to sometimes have that viewpoint. I can see what everyone's using. It doesn't always help them if they can't respond to the data that you get. And so again, just think about that. If like 80% of your sales or 20% of your items, and you have 300 items, how many do you think you should cut? And the way we do that, we kind of call this process rationalization, right? Or if you're in grocery, it'd be like a SKU rationalization, a SKU being an item, right? And so in bakery, you don't have those terms. The good thing about, if there is a good thing about retail, is there's a little bit more formalized process to making the decisions and a lot less emotional process to making those decisions. And so on that formal process of SKU rationalization, we would take a threshold like low sales and say, okay, anything below this number of sales, we're going to consider removing, from our menus, from our repertoire, from production. And then you can look at that list later and say, but when you look at it item by item, as a group, many people in your group will want to put those items back in for whatever reason. Like that's our standard, that's our, that's our favorite, my favorite. So everyone loves it, things like that. So it can be kind of hardcore. And again, really in the service of like, do you want more profits? Do you want longevity? Do you want efficiency? So sometimes you have to do the hard things, right? So kind of recommend that. I'm gonna get on with the pizza dough. I just wanted to hop here on here at YouTube. Haven't done much YouTube live, but I'll see how everybody's doing. Getting ready for school. Hope everybody's weekend is wonderful. Hope to see you around Chicago sometime. Love you all. Peace. Be good.